In Activity 2, Making a Rock, students create their own model rocks and discuss the earth processes involved in rock formation. Students then add their own fossils to the model rocks to be discovered later when they dissect the rocks and separate their contents. You will need the following materials from the kit: Activity Sheet 2, 1 quart container, plastic cup, alum, calcite pieces, powdered clay, gravel, pyrite pieces, quartz pieces, rock guide, salt, sand, 1 tablespoon measuring spoon, and the rock and minerals video. You will also need to provide objects to fossilize, paper towels, pitcher, safety goggles, DVD and monitor, and tap water. To prepare for the activity, make a copy of Activity Sheet 2 for each student. Make sure to have the rock guide on hand for reference. Have each student bring to class a small object to fossilize, such as a leaf, a small chicken bone, or a seed. Make sure students know that the items should be organic. Also, it is a good idea to have several extra items on hand the day of the activity for students who forget to bring them. Next, set up a distribution center with the following items: containers, plastic trays, tongue depressors, plastic cups, and newspaper. Also, set out the rock ingredients: containers of alum, powdered clay, gravel, salt, sand, and talc. 1 bag each of calcite, pyrite, and quartz pieces, a pitcher of tap water, and 7 tablespoons. Make sure to have paper towels available in case of spills, and finally, provide each team with enough newspaper to cover their work area. To begin the activity, review with the class that minerals are made of only one material, and that rocks are made of a mixture of minerals and possibly other materials. Ask students, how do you think rocks are formed? Accept all answers, and then explain that several different processes can form rocks. Inform students that the rock specimens in the kit can be categorized according to how they were formed, and that the 3 categories of rock used in the activity are called sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic. Although the classes of rock chart is not used until later in this module, you may display it now to summarize the discussion of the different types of rocks. Next, introduce sedimentary rock as a type of rock named after the material from which it is made, sediment. Ask students, what do you think sediment is? Students will probably know that sediment is the particles that settle to the bottom of a liquid. Explain that sedimentary rocks are formed when sediment accumulates in layers and is squeezed and cemented together. Next, introduce igneous rock formation, and tell students that igneous means related to fire or fiery in origin. Ask students, what geological phenomenon can you think of that involves fire, extreme heat, or molten rock? Students may suggest that volcanoes involve molten rock. Inform students that igneous rocks are formed when molten rock from deep within the earth cools and hardens. Finally, introduce metamorphic rock formation, and explain that meta means change and that morph means form. Then ask, what does the name metamorphic tell you about this type of rock? Guide students to understand that metamorphic rocks have undergone changes before arriving at their present form. Metamorphic rocks are formed when sedimentary and igneous, and even other metamorphic rocks, are subjected to extremely high temperatures and pressure within the earth. Next, define petrifaction as to become petrified or fossilized. Help students understand that during the petrifaction process, the remains of plants or animals are replaced with minerals and other chemicals. However, the form of the original material can still be seen. For example, the rings of a tree trunk or the ridges of a scallop shell can still be seen after petrifaction. Next, distribute a copy of Activity Sheet 2 to each student and instruct them to write the definition next to each term. Inform students that in this activity, they will use minerals and other natural materials to make a rock, but instead of applying extreme heat and pressure over thousands of years, they will add an ingredient to their mixture that will cause the other ingredients in the mixture to cement together. Students then mold the rock dough with their hands and set it aside for several days while it hardens. Next, show and describe all of the materials at the distribution center. Each group of 4 students will need the following: 1 container, 1 plastic tray, 1 tongue depressor, 6 teaspoons of powdered clay, 4 teaspoons of gravel, 2 teaspoons of sand, 2 teaspoons of talc, 1/2 teaspoon of alum, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 to 4 teaspoons of water in a plastic cup, and 4 pieces each of calcite, pyrite, and quartz. Do not label the bags of minerals, as students will conduct tests in a later activity to determine their identity. First, stir the mixture with a tongue depressor, adding just enough water to make a stiff dough. When the right dough consistency has been achieved, remove the dough from the container and divide it into 4 equal-sized pieces, 1 for each member of the team. Make sure students wear safety goggles when mixing the rock dough and have them wash their hands thoroughly afterward. At this point, students should bury their fossil item and 1 piece of each of the 3 mystery minerals in their dough. Instruct students to then roll the dough into balls and place 4 dough balls on a plastic tray and then flatten them into slabs 1/2 inch thick. After the teams have mixed, molded, and placed their rocks on trays, instruct them to place the trays where the rocks can be observed but not disturbed. A warm, well-ventilated area is best. The rocks will harden in about 3 to 5 days. Finally, after students have finished making their rock models, show part 1 of the Rocks and Minerals video titled The Origins of Rocks and Minerals.
On Hawaii's volcano Kilauea, new rock is being formed. This red-hot lava is rock in liquid form. Hawaiian legend says it is Pele, the fire goddess, who throws the hot lava down the mountain. But scientists explain it another way.
To conclude the activity, return all unused ingredients to the kit. Discard any soiled newspaper and save the rest for use in Activity 3. Rinse and air dry the containers, tongue depressors, and measuring spoons, and return them to the kit along with the video. Note that the containers will be used again in Activity 8. For science background, reinforcement activities, curriculum connections, and information about the Delta Science Reader, please consult your DSM Teacher's Guide.